The sinking of the Titanic on April 15, 1912, remains one of the most infamous maritime disasters in history. While hindsight is 20/20, it's intriguing to explore the series of mistakes and oversights that, if addressed differently, could have potentially altered the course of history and saved the Titanic from its tragic fate. Insufficient lifeboats. The most glaring mistake was the inadequate number of lifeboats on board. The Titanic carried only enough lifeboats to accommodate about half of its total passenger and crew capacity. This gross miscalculation ignored the possibility of a disaster, leaving many passengers without a means of escape when the ship struck the iceberg. Ignoring ice warnings. The Titanic received several iceberg warnings from nearby ships on the day of the disaster. Unfortunately, the ship's radio operators were preoccupied with relaying passenger messages, and the significance of these warnings was not given the attention it deserved. Had the crew heeded these warnings and altered their course accordingly, the collision might have been avoided. High-speed navigation. The Titanic was sailing at a high speed through iceberg-infested waters, which significantly reduced the reaction time of the crew when the iceberg was finally spotted. Slower navigation might have allowed for a more timely response, potentially avoiding the collision altogether. No binoculars in the crow's nest. One peculiar oversight was the absence of binoculars in the crow's nest, the lookout point on the ship. The crew would have had a better chance of spotting the iceberg sooner with binoculars, potentially allowing more time to change course. Miscommunication of steering orders. When the iceberg was finally spotted, the orders given to the helmsman for a hard turn were misunderstood due to the design of the ship's wheelhouse. Clearer communication might have allowed for a quicker and more effective response to avoid the iceberg. Inadequate training for the crew. The crew, especially those responsible for operating the lifeboats, lacked adequate training for emergency situations. This lack of preparedness contributed to the chaos and confusion during the evacuation, resulting in many lifeboats being launched half-empty. Dependence on the ship's reputation. The Titanic was hailed as unsinkable, fostering complacency among both the crew and passengers. This overconfidence likely contributed to the delayed response and poor evacuation procedures when the ship struck the iceberg. Design flaws. The ship's design played a significant role in its demise. The decision to extend the bulkheads only a few feet above the waterline allowed water to spill into adjacent compartments, hastening the sinking process. A more robust design could have contained the damage and prolonged the sinking, potentially allowing more time for rescue efforts. Lack of lifeboat drills. The absence of regular lifeboat drills meant that passengers and crew were unfamiliar with the procedures, leading to confusion and delays during the evacuation. Regular drills could have ensured a smoother and more efficient evacuation process. Overlooking fire damage. Before the Titanic's departure, a coal bunker fire was discovered but was deemed non-threatening. However, this fire may have weakened the ship's structure, making it more susceptible to damage upon collision with the iceberg. Taking the fire more seriously and addressing it thoroughly might have prevented or mitigated the disaster. Inadequate wireless communication. While the Titanic had a state-of-the-art wireless communication system, it was not consistently monitored for important messages. Improving the system's oversight and ensuring constant communication might have allowed for more timely receipt of critical information. No night glasses for lookouts. The lack of night vision equipment for the lookouts impaired their ability to spot potential dangers in low-light conditions. Equipping the lookouts with night glasses could have increased their visibility, potentially allowing them to detect the iceberg sooner. Overlooking the severity of the situation. The initial response to the collision was marked by disbelief and a lack of urgency. Many passengers and crew members failed to grasp the gravity of the situation until it was too late. A quicker and more decisive response might have saved more lives. Delayed distress signals. The crew delayed sending out distress signals, wasting valuable time. If distress signals had been transmitted promptly, nearby ships might have reached the Titanic in time to rescue a larger number of passengers and crew. Inadequate lifeboat loading. Even with the available lifeboats, many were launched only partially filled. A lack of coordination and organization during the evacuation process meant that precious seats were left empty. Implementing a more structured and efficient loading process could have maximized the use of available lifeboats. The sinking of the Titanic was a culmination of various mistakes and oversights, each contributing to the tragedy. While it's impossible to rewrite history, reflecting on these mistakes offers valuable lessons for the improvement of maritime safety and emergency preparedness. As we remember the Titanic, let us use its story as a reminder to prioritize safety, heed warnings, and continually strive for improvements in technology, training, and communication to prevent such disasters in the future.